Welcome to episode 134 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. We don't seem to be able to catch a break from the chaos. We are not yet halfway through 2022, and there have been around 200 mass shootings in this year. The senseless massacre in Buffalo, fueled by white supremacy, is what we have to face this week. It's just sickening. It is clear that this is getting worse, but I was wondering, just how much worse is it? So I looked at a database of mass shootings, which are defined by at least 3 people being killed, not including the gunman. Just to give you some perspective, in 1990, there was 1 mass shooting in the entire year. In the year 2000, there was 1 mass shooting. In 2010, there was 1 mass shooting. In 2020, there were 2 mass shootings in the entire year. This has gone so horribly off the rails that it's hard to imagine. We know that we are living in a time of tremendous upheaval. We can see that there are many people, way too many people, who have become victims of a mind virus. This, combined with unfettered access to weaponry, is going to have this sort of outcome. We know that the human brain is not fully connected until near the mid-20s. We have decided that an 18-year-old is not old enough to handle buying a beer, but they are capable of buying an assault rifle. And he can do this even though he was held for a psych evaluation just months before buying the weapon. This is insane. We can't control the misinformation. We can't control any person's susceptibility to mind viruses. But we surely can control how many weapons are put into the mix and who they are sold to. This is not a problem that will resolve itself. We have become so desensitized to mass shootings that they barely even make it to the news anymore. We have been told time and time again, we have seen the images time and time again, and still nothing seems to move the needle. Nothing seems to raise the level of outrage to a point where we address this problem. The spiritual principle remains the same. You will be tapped on the shoulder when there is something you need to address. Each time you ignore it, the tap gets more forceful, turning into a shove. Keep ignoring it, and you will take a brick to the side of the head. We are taking a brick to the side of the head most days now, and some days we take multiple bricks to the side of the head, and still nothing. Is it really in us to wait to see how horrendous the warnings will become before we do anything about this? One of our greatest failings is to ignore the pain and suffering of others up until the moment that it affects us personally. We seem to have the ability to look away from what happens to other people as long as we feel that the pain is not going to touch our own lives. Will you care once a mass shooting happens in your neighborhood grocery store? Or will you need to be one of the wounded or lose a loved one in the shooting for it to seem like the right time to tackle the problem? The world we live in is becoming increasingly hostile and incendiary. Yet legislation is being passed that makes access to weapons unrestricted. Division and acrimony is at a fevered pitch, and yet we have no way to deal with people who have lost touch with reality. We have no plan to keep them from hurting themselves or others. Are we going to accept all the senseless loss of lives, or are we going to do something? And why on earth are some fixated on forcing women to bring children into this inhospitable world, one where they cannot be assured food, shelter, or health care? And why are people more invested in the divorce of a celebrity couple than they are in the loss of bodily autonomy for all women? The cruelty of humans at this point in time is hard to take in. It's impossible to understand. It takes so much work just to not lose faith, to not curl up in a ball and try to shut it all out. It is hard to maintain a love of humanity when so many people are being inhumane. But this is our task. We are here to make things better. We are here to fight the difficult fights. We are here to raise children who make this a better place, not ones who find solace in racist theories that embolden them to kill innocent people. We are here to impart to our children the virtues of honesty, integrity, empathy, and humility. We are tasked with expanding the minds of our children to see the humanity in each and every person. In a world that is full of dark, dark forces, parents can't turn a blind eye to the types of input that young minds can easily take in. Our children need help figuring out how this world works and how they will navigate it. If you can't provide a reasonable framework for that, they will fall prey to the dark forces that are only a click away. How much worse is this going to get before we turn the corner? Let's do a little exercise. I want you to think about who you are and how you present in the world. Are you an older white woman? Are you a middle-aged man with red hair? How would someone else describe you? We know that there is so much more to you, but how would a complete stranger describe you if they were to see you? They can only see your exterior. Now imagine that there are an unknown number of people who have decided that all people that fit your description need to be wiped off the face of the earth. And these people have the weaponry to make that a reality. And the way they see you cannot be altered. For the sake of this exercise, you cannot change your description. If they want to kill all redheads, you do not have the ability to dye your hair brown. Imagine having to look over your shoulder as you are pumping gas in case one of these people who want you dead happen to pull up or drive by. Imagine standing in front of your house wondering if any of the passing cars will contain someone who has made this their objective. Then you turn on the news and see that these killers are doing exactly what they dream of, exactly what they have promised. You would never want to venture outside because outside isn't safe. Then it becomes clear that you aren't even safe inside. Those who think you shouldn't exist are killing people in their own beds, in their own houses, for no reason that can be explained. Turns out you aren't safe anywhere. Just imagine what that would do to your mental health, knowing that people want to kill you for the way you look. And that is as shallow as their reasoning is. They want to kill you for how you look. They know nothing else about you other than you look a way that makes them feel that you shouldn't exist. Imagine the hit your mental health would take if you had to move about in a world where these people exist and the systems that might stop them are doing nothing of the sort. You are being hunted, and there is nothing you can do about it. Take that heightened sense of fear that you feel when watching a horror movie and think about being in that state of mind every day of your life. Then add to that the generational trauma you were born with, because people have been killing people who look like you for many generations of your family. This has been going on for 400 years of your collective family history. If you are an indigenous person, your family's plight goes back even further. As an older person, I have only experienced a tiny trace of that trauma through living in the time of a pandemic that was much harder to survive for older people. I felt traumatized by being targeted by an invisible virus that could end my life. It fundamentally changed how my brain worked. It changed how I lived my life. Every choice I made had to balance risk versus reward. Was the thing I wanted to do worth potentially dying for? Now imagine living that way your entire life and knowing that your ancestors lived that way their entire lives. And it is all because of how they look, nothing deeper. I honestly don't know how people of color have the bravery and tenacity to get up each morning and go out into a world where such evil exists and persists. It is unfathomable. And imagine trying to tell everyone what was happening to you and yours, and having everyone turn a blind eye. First they told what was happening, and it wasn't enough. Then we had phones that showed us in bloody detail what was happening, and still a blind eye. We have to do better than this. It is not a viable option to wait until your specific group is targeted. We have to stop the carnage now. Last week we talked about karma and our need to release that which we had from previous lives and that which we have accumulated this time around. I wanted to talk about some strategies for doing so. Let's start with releasing the things that you have done wrong. Everyone has done some wrong things. It's just part of the human experience. Sometimes we do things that we know are wrong, and other times we do things that we don't understand to be wrong until after they are done. We are not always fully plugged in as we stumble through life making choices. At any given moment, we can only understand what is accessible to us at the level of spiritual awareness we inhabit at that moment. The point of karma is for you to learn the lesson from what you chose. It is not to punish you. So if you realize you have done something wrong, you can sit with that, figure out what you specifically did, why you did it, why it wasn't the best choice, and what you will do differently moving forward. You will not carry with you the karma of a mistaken choice if you are truly repentant. Being repentant is nothing more than being sorry for what you did or didn't do that created the situation. If you learn the lesson that was embedded in the experience, you can release the karma. You can sit quietly and think of the regret you feel and affirm a commitment that you won't do that same mistake again. Then you're released. This process doesn't require anyone other than you. You don't have to involve clergy to be heard and understood. You, confessing to yourself and expressing your regret and plan to move forward in a more positive way, is enough. Once you truly own your choice and the fallout it created, you have learned the lesson. That is all that karma is meant to do. We only carry karma forward when we refuse to or are unable to face our mistakes and frailties. We only carry karma forward when we continue to make the same wrong-headed choices. Do the work and then release the karma. You don't have to carry that any longer. You are free to move along to the next lesson. And what if the karma you are carrying forward involves other people? You are responsible for your part, and you are allowed to let go of what everyone else did. Easier said than done. To carry the anger and hurt from what others did keeps you stuck in that place and time, a place and time that is no longer relevant. It is a choice to re-traumatize yourself over and over again. This is always a choice you have, but it is one that will keep you from moving forward. And no choices made by other people should ever hold you back from your own forward progression. A memory of what happened is just a thought that you are carrying. And as we know, we can change our thoughts. The next time you think of something that someone else has done that upsets you, think of one positive thing that you have learned from your interaction with that person, and think of one well wish for them. That's all. Don't beat yourself up for having the thought. Just add to it the more positive thought. This will take a thought that is categorized as purely awful to one that is more nuanced, which is always true of any interaction. Here's an example. Follow a painful memory with something like, I learned to create healthy boundaries because of you, and I wish you continued growth. Even the worst people have taught you something, even if it is just that you never want to be like them. And you can always wish something positive for them, be it peace or growth or a greater connection to their creator. The more often you're able to do this with a painful memory, the sooner you will find that your mind moves the memory to a bucket that carries less weight. It will, before too long, become a memory that carries no heat. It carries no real importance. You're over it. Remember, the opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference. Indifference is where you want to end up. Once you reach the point where the other person's actions have no more power over you, you are free. Of course, you get to decide where to take the relationship from there. That is for you and your intuition to decide. You want to be free. You want to be light. You want to move on to your next adventure. It is within your power to do so. Thanks for returning for another week of Rebirth Revolution. I hope you get to experience cool breezes and grass beneath your feet. You can always let me know how you're doing by emailing me at rebirthrev@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Rebirth Revolution can be found on all the podcast apps, the music apps, and full episodes play on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Please subscribe, rate, download, and share whenever possible. Until next week, remember what you have learned. Wish your teachers well, stick with your COVID precautions, and continue to support women. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe and free from other people's crap.